Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa min stanna bi sunnatihi wa iqtafa atharahu wa ittaba'a hudah. My dear respected brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another beautiful meeting in this beautiful conference titled Invite to the Way of Your Lord with Wisdom and Good Speech, as it's extracted from the ayah of the glorious Quran. And we are in our second part of the lecture with our beloved Shaykh Ariff Olla, Hafidhullah, and we are going through the book titled Iqtida, as-Siraat, al-Mustaqeem, following the straight path and staying away from everything that is diverted. And in it, there's, as the Shaykh will explain, and has already explained, may Allah bless him, the important principles that are needed in regards to the kuffar and everything pertaining them and sticking and following to the straight path. And this beautiful book is written by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, one of the greatest scholars of this religion. So we advise that you all make notes and benefit and listen, because this is very suitable and very important for the young and for the old. So ahsanallahu alaykum, we advise you that you listen attentively, and we would let the Shaykh speak. فليتفضل مشكورا مأجورا.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen, Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all, and may it be a cause of guidance to the straight path, so that we can assist ourselves and our families, our brothers and our sisters to stay on this straight path, and if they are not, to have at least some kind of insight as to why this religion is giving us honor. Picking up where we left off from, the Shaykh said that one of the reasons why imitating the kuffar or the path of misguidance is that it leads to the whole of the religion being corrupted, and it becomes corrupt in the Aqidah, it becomes corrupt in the actions, because innovations become included into it. And it also promotes, when you start watering down the religion and start compromising, it also ends up promoting fisq, and it ends up promoting sins. And we see this on a daily basis. Nasheeds was the first step. Then it became Islamic songs. And now there is no differentiation between what we would class as normal music and Islamic entertainment. I don't know what they call it nowadays, but it's clear music, some of it. And some of it has a clear resemblance to the different types of music as well, unfortunately. So this is an example of what the Shaykh is saying, fasad ad-deen. And the reason why your religion becomes corrupted is when your niyyah becomes corrupted. When you stop seeking Allah's face and His pleasure and wanting to follow the footstep and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then the niyyah becomes corrupted. And when the niyyah becomes corrupted, your knowledge becomes corrupted. And that's when the whole religion becomes corrupted. The niyyah, taratun fasad al-niyyah wa taratun jahal, the Shaykh says. The Shaykh then continues to give another reason as to why imitating the way of Ashab al-Jahim is prohibited in the Sharia, is because they do not understand how to deal with ikhtilaf. And this is something which is very relevant in the Ummah and in our societies in England today. The Shaykh says, ikhtilaf fil asl qisman. Difference of opinion of two types. Ikhtilaf tanawwa wa tadad. Difference of opinion which is tolerated, and sometimes this tolerated form of this difference of opinion is not really a difference of opinion. An example of this is well known in the books of tafsir. If you were to open a book of tafsir, I don't think you will find any mufassir saying the exact same as another mufassir from the Salaf. An example of this, when they said Siraat al-Mustaqeem, what is Siraat al-Mustaqeem? Some of them said it refers to the Quran. Some of them said it refers to the Sunnah. Some of them said it refers to Islam. Some of them said it refers to following the righteous people, because the next ayah says, Siraat al-Ladina anamta alayhim, those people that you have guided. But is there a difference in the actual meaning? There is no difference. They're all saying the same thing. Even the examples they're giving are different, but the underlying message is the same. This is an example of ikhtilaf tanawwu. And not understanding ikhtilaf to know it properly will create disunity and enmity within the religion. And this is what the Shaykh is saying here. Is that when they stopped referring and when they stopped referring to ikhtilaf as something which is tolerable and intolerable, because there are some kind of ikhtilaf which are intolerable, and this is tadad. But when you stop tolerating ijtihad or ikhtilaf, which is within the bounds of ijtihad, then they didn't know how to deal with it. And then this is how they became misguided. And then they split into sects and groups. This is what the Shaykh is saying. And this is unfortunate, which is happening in the Ummah today. You find some groups of people following a particular madhab, and they will say that you are against our madhab, and we will not respect you, and we will, try and assassinate your character and the reputation of your masjid based on a party or a partisanship that they're trying to hold on to. But really, what we're saying is no different to them. We love, for example, Abu Hanifa, we love Shafi, we love Malik, we love Ahmed, we love them all. So if we are saying that we are not following the opinion of Abu Hanifa on this particular issue, it doesn't necessarily mean we're disrespecting him. This is what they don't understand. Not just them, but I'm saying generally when it comes to hard-heartedness, when it comes to ikhtilaf. Now unfortunately, it's within Salafiyah as well. When one sheikh says that this sheikh or this person is somebody that you should be warned against, and another sheikh says this person is not somebody you should warn against, then what they do is one party makes it binding upon the other party, and they say, if you don't listen to us, then you're not going to be in Salafiyah anymore. We will not be my brothers. I will not give you salam. I will not even smile in your face, unfortunately, in extreme cases. The Shaykh goes on to say that kull mujtahid musib, that every single mujtahid has a level of correctness within him. But Shaykh Muhammad al-Taymiyyah said that this wording is incorrect. Every mujtahid is not musib. Musib means that you are correct. So any form of ijtihad that you do, you are correct in doing. So the Hanafis are correct, the Shafis are correct, the Malikis are correct, and the Hanbalis are correct, for example, on a particular mas'ala. But this is what the wording would mean. But the Shaykh Muhammad al-Taymiyyah said no, the wording here is incorrect. We will say that every kind of ijtihad is rewardable. And this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that when the mujtahid makes his ijtihad, if he gets it right, he gets 2 rewards. If he gets it wrong, he gets 1 reward. But the one who gets it wrong is not correct. He gets a reward, but he's not correct. And this is a qa'idah, and we will touch upon this qa'idah in a minute, but before we go on to that, it is very important to realize that the mujtahid is rewarded, but the layman is not rewarded. The mujtahid is rewarded, but the layman is not rewarded. What do I mean by this? When you see a scholar, or you hear of an opinion from a scholar, and you think in yourself that this is strange, I've never had this before, or I can't accept it, even though it's valid ijtihad, and if you start speaking against this opinion, then you will become sinful. It's a form of ghibah, and it's a form of disrespecting knowledge. And again, this is within the broader scope of fiqh, but it's also within, unfortunately, Salafiyah that we see today. So a sheikh says something, and they don't see that as being Salafiyah, so they start speaking at the sheikh, and they start speaking against the ijtihad. But then going on to the next point, which is very, very important, which stems on from the one before that, is that ikhtilaf cannot be a cause of disunity. And they make it a cause of disunity is when they make a talazum fil ijtihad, when they force your ijtihad or his ijtihad upon you. This is the correct opinion in my opinion, and you must follow it also. And if you don't follow it, we're going to be disunited. And this is obviously incorrect. This is incorrect. We will say that ijtihad has no ilzam. If it's an issue of valid ijtihad, which is based upon Quran and Sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf, but they have a difference of opinion, then you have to respect it. You don't have to follow it, but you have to respect it. Okay? So like I said, this is found within the broader sense of fiqh, but it's also found, unfortunately, within the Sharia. And the Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam, says that there is indication of this in the ayah, وَلَكِنْ اخْتَلَفُوا. They differed. The parties before us, they differed when it came to the Anbiya. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ آمَنْ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ كَفَرْ. Some of them believed and they took this level of difference of opinion, and they took this religious level of respect and tolerance, and they were guided by it. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ كَفَرَ. And some of them belied the messengers, and some of them even went as far as trying to kill them. So the Shaykh is saying here that there is praise in unity and understanding ijtihad, and there is dispraise in not understanding ijtihad and disunity. The next reason why, so this is how they deviated. They didn't understand this point. Another reason why imitation and following the way of the people heading to the hellfire is blameworthy in the Sharia, because when you start imitating them, you start removing your Sharia bit by bit. You start removing your Sharia bit by bit. To the extent now the society that we're living in today is, if they see you with a beard, they see you with a hijab, you're praying salah, they will see you as being extreme. And I came across an instance where a brother, his name was, I don't want to say his name, but he was basically in a predicament. He wants to take time off for Salatul Jumu'ah. The manager is not giving it. He goes, we have Muhammad, we have Adam, we have all these different people. None of them go for Salatul Jumu'ah. Why do you want to go? So why are you so special? We can't give you an extra half an hour. It's not possible. You can't pray at work because there's nobody establishing the Jumu'ah at work. And he wants to go extra half an hour to get to pray his salah. So what happens now is the liberal Muslim is seen as the good one. And the one who wants to do, he's not calling to, he's not preaching, he just wants to pray salah. And he's seen as the extreme one. And what is happening in society today is when they see people practicing the religion and they're following the religion properly, they will see that this is a form of extremism. And some of them even want to follow the haqq. They will say, I want to pray, I want to. But if it means I'm going to become a Wahhabi, if it means I'm going to be classed as Daesh or ISIS, if it means I'm going to be seen as being that step too far, then I don't want that. No, I don't want that. So then what they start doing is they start going backwards. They become liberal. So whenever you have extremism within society, this is Islamic, but not even Islamic. You have right-wing groups who are extreme. Then the only way that the society can think that they can deal with this is they go through the opposite side and they become completely liberal. So this is the imbalance that you will find within society, and this is the imbalance that the Shaykh is saying that you will find in your religion. You will not find a balance if you start removing aspects of the Sharia. This is the haqq, this is the ummatul wasata, this is the as-Siraat, al-Mustaqeem. And he also said that if we start imitating the kuffar and we start removing bits of the religion, then what you will do is you will start removing tawbah. And this makes perfect sense. Why would you need to make tawbah when you have become liberal? I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not praying Salatul Jumu'ah, why do I need to make tawbah? I'm still a Muslim. I don't need to make tawbah for not praying Salatul Jumu'ah, because I've justified it within myself that Salatul Jumu'ah is not important to me anymore. And this is what happens. So the Shaykh says that they will start removing the abwab of tawbah also. The next thing the Shaykh says is that when we start following them and start watering down our Sharia, we begin to have love for them. We begin to have love for them. موالاة والمودة وإن كان متعلقة بالقلب لكن مخالفة في الظاهر عأوا على مقاطعة الكافرين ومباينتهم. You will have love internally for them. And this is known as muwalat. But muwalat is of levels. Muwalat could lead the level of kufr, and we'll touch upon this slightly later on in a very important point. But it can be the level of kufr, when you love those people who are astray from Islam, but you have love for them and you support them. But it can be a level of sin, and this is when you start respecting them, this is when you start imitating them, this is when you start seeing good in them and not good in Islam. But it can also be in a way which is mubah. So being like the kuffar in some aspects can be mubah. And more on this will come in a little while, inshallah. But the point here is that when you start leaving the Sharia and you start following them, you begin to gain love for them. But the Shaykh says that we don't need this because we have our own identity. And we have our own identity, and we have our own hidayah. We don't need to be like the kuffar. And this is unfortunately happening now as well with some people. They believe that the only way that we can give da'wah to them is if we start learning their sciences and using their approach to call them to Islam. So if there is an atheist, we start learning these scientific terms and start calling him to Islam using these scientific terms. If a person is, any kind of field, what they feel is that they will need to learn these sciences and these types of knowledge in order for us to promote Islam. The Shaykh is saying we don't need that. We have the haqq. This is the benchmark, not what they have. So we don't need to learn what they have in order to explain this. This is the haqq, this explains itself. And it's important that the Shaykh is saying here, this is a very important point, that some people say that we imitate the kuffar, but we don't have love for them. Connected to this point, Muhammad al-Uthaymin rahimahullah said that you will become sinful even if you don't have intention to be like them. As long as you are following them, and even if you have no intention to love them, as long as you are knowingly following them in something which is specific to them, then you will be classed as following them. Another reason why following the kuffar and ashab al-jahim is blameworthy in our Sharia is when you start imitating them, your heart becomes to be affected and full of disease. مرض القلب ومتى قلب مريض لم يصح شيء من أعداء الصحة مطلقا. When your heart becomes corrupted, your actions will never be purified. Your actions will never be purified. These are some of the reasons, but now the Shaykh now is beginning to address some of the doubts that some people bring. So some people, they say, the Sharia, yes, it does say that we should be different to the kuffar, and yes, the ayah does say غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, but this is more to do with symbolism. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can't be like them. This is a shubha, this is a doubt that some people bring. And this is, again, very valid in society today. We should be brothers, we should have interfaith, we all come from the same parents, we are all Abrahamic faith. So these ayat that talk about us being different, it's just symbolism really, it's nothing deeper than that. Shaykh al-Islam responds to them in two ways. He says the first thing is that the ayah is general, or these ayat and these adillah are all general, the evidences are general in its general sense. So you cannot make anything specific unless you have dalil. You can't make something specific until you have dalil. So this is general in its taklif, but it's also general for the mukallaf. It's also general for the mukallaf. So it includes all Muslims. It includes all Muslims. So you can't say, well, I'm special in this, I'm not going to fall into resembling them or anything like that. I don't have love for them. All of these reservations that you mentioned don't apply to me. The Shaykh is saying no. The texts are general, and the example that he gives is that if you're talking about the face, this includes the eyes, it includes the nose, includes everything connected to the face. You can't say somebody's face is like this, but then leave out the specifics. So he's saying when something in its generality, then we need to leave it in its generality. There will be more upon this point as well afterwards, because he ties this in with something else afterwards. Another doubt that some people bring is that they say you have to be different with some things, but you can allow some things. The tahrim, or the fact that we have to be different to them, is not unrestricted. Some things we can be like them, and there's no problem in that. We say in response to that, you are true in what you are saying, but you are using this point to legislate or to allow things which are incorrect. What is established in being haram is haram in tashbih for them, in imitating them. But if there are certain things within the Sharia which permit us being like them in certain aspects or certain contexts, then we are allowed to do this. So then the Shaykh explains what does this mean. So sometimes something is haram in imitating them because of the way they are doing it, not because it's haram in its asl. So the example that the Shaykh gives, that we are not allowed to pray salat facing fire. If you see a fire, a wood of fire, or like a barbecue or fire, you are not allowed to face that and use it as a sutra. This is because the people of fire worship used to face ovens when they used to pray. So the Shaykh is saying here, it's not that because a sutra is not allowed, it's not that because you can't pray in this direction, it's just because of a description in this particular context. The Shaykh also says that it can also be that there is a reason for us not to, and the Sharia gives a reason. So don't be like the Yahud and Nasara in a particular aspect, and he gives the reason within the hadith. If that reason is not there, then you can do it. If the reason is not there, then you can do it. Moving on to the next reason, the Shaykh says that kufr and imitation leads to labeling. So it leads to cultism and it leads to sects. People start labeling one another within the kuffar. And this happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Muhajirun said, Ya al-Muhajir. And he said to the Nasara, then the people of the Nasara said, Ya al-Nasara. And the Prophet ﷺ said, what is this? This is the da'wah of the Jahiliyyah. You are brothers. And you are calling your sect in this way, and you are calling your sect in this way. This is from the way of the Jahiliyyah. And then the Shaykh gives another reason. He says that when we start following the way of those people who are misguided, we will be leaving some of the characteristics that Allah has given to those who have been guided. So Allah says that those people who are guided many times in the Quran, ulil albab, ulil nuha, ulaika humul muhtadun. There are different characteristics given to those people upon the Siraat al-Mustaqeem. But those people who are not upon the Siraat al-Mustaqeem, Allah gives them sifat also, Allah gives them characteristics also. So Allah says, Daleen. Allah calls them Jahilin. Allah says about them, La ya'qilun. Allah says about them, La yasma'un. They don't want to hear the guidance. So when we start following these paths which are other than Islam, you are leaving these characteristics that Allah has praised you with in following the Siraat al-Mustaqeem. But then he has a very interesting point, and he says that when something is specific to the kuffar, so again we're talking about definitions here. The first part of the book is about definitions. So we're still talking about what is imitation and why the reasons for imitation being something unprescribed in the religion of Islam. And he says that when something is specific to the kuffar, then this is what would be referred to as imitation. So if something is specific to the kuffar and they are living and amongst the Muslims, in the land of the Muslims, and this, when you see this person, you see that he is doing this particular action or wear this particular garment, then you will immediately know that he's not a Muslim. Then doing that action would mean you are imitating him. But then Muhammad al-Uthaymeen says that if the Muslims are living in non-Muslim lands, just like us, and something that they are doing is not specific to them, then this is not imitation. This is not imitation. This is why you will find a lot of the fatwa going back 30, 40 years, they will say that wearing shirt and trousers, the elders will probably know, wearing shirt and trousers is not halal, it's not permitted, it's haram because it's imitating the kuffar. But there were Muslims here 30, 40 years ago. So the hukam would be different according to where you are. And this has been stated by Imam Malik also, and explained further by Ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari in the 10th volume, that if something is specific to them in the land of the Muslims, then we can't imitate them in this. But if you're in the land of non-Muslims and it's something which is not specific to them, then this is not imitation. Like, what if the asl coincides? So what if, for example, in your country where you come from a Muslim country, they wear shirt and trousers. For example, Egypt, I think not many people officially wear thobes there. The official dress code within Parliament or in any formal paradigm, you'd wear shirt and trousers. That person wearing his shirt and trousers comes to a non-Muslim land. The asl is the same. They're wearing shirt and trousers here, he was wearing shirt and trousers in his Muslim country. In that situation, even if the asl coincide, then there is no tashbih. There is no tashbih. So if you see a person wearing shiny trousers, immediately you think that this person is not Muslim, because he's not wearing the clothes of the Muslims. But if there is a Muslim land that has the same clothes, or the same resemblance, or same symbol, which is coinciding with what the Muslims do, then this is not tashbih. And the example that the Shaykh gives here is that at the time of the Salaf, the people from India used to have a special shoe which was made out of wood, and they used to use that for agriculture. So they asked Imam Ahmad, what is the ruling on wearing this shoe? It's foreign to the Muslim land. So the Shaykh said it becomes permissible if there is a need for it, because we are not doing this now out of imitation. We're doing this because there is a need within agriculture to do it. But Imam Ahmad said, I dislike it for me to wear it, even if I need to wear it. Muhammad al-Uthaymeen says that this is a very important qaida. This is a very important qaida. There may be something which is permissible, but by you doing it, your family, your friends, somebody in your society will see that this is something blameworthy. Why is this person doing it? He's constantly telling me to come to the masjid, he's constantly telling me to do good, but I see him doing this thing. You know it's mubah, but he doesn't. He sees it as being something blameworthy. Then it's better for you to leave it. This is what Muhammad al-Uthaymeen is saying, and this is the meaning of what Imam Ahmad is saying here. That it is permissible because there is a need. But if he was to do it himself, then this could create a problem. And then Shaykh al-Islam goes into something which is quite relevant today, which is the idea of moon sighting. And he's saying that people have deviated within this ummah when they started taking the idea of moon sighting bil-kitab wal-hisab, by estimating it or using astronomy to look at the moon sighting. And this is how the people before us had innovated into their religion. He said that people from this ummah are starting to do it now as well. And how relevant is that? 700, 800 years on, people are still doing it in the Muslim countries. But Allah tells us in the Quran, يَسَأَلُونَكَ أَنِ الْحِلَّ قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. The point in this ayah is that we have the moon sighting. We don't estimate, we don't use astronomy, we don't use predictions to establish the month. So he's giving another example of how something might be permissible in its asal. We both have moon sighting, but because of the way they are doing it, it becomes haram. Another example which I found in Saudi Arabia, and I thought I'd mention it here, I'm not sure if it is relevant in the UK, but you find some of the Qurra, they will make the salah very lengthy. So you go to pray Salatul Isha, and he will pray maybe 2 or 3 sides in the first rak'ah and 2 or 3 sides in the second rak'ah, which is good. I mean, if it's something which doesn't conflict with the adat, then you are reminding the people of the ayat of Allah. However, what the Yahud and Nasara did is when they used to stand, they used to make it long, and when they used to make ruku' ويخفف الركوع والسجود والاعتدال كما كان. So now what they used to do is they used to make the ruku' and the sujood disproportionate to the standing. So they stand for a very long time, but then the rest of salah is very quick. But the Prophet ﷺ used to give each stage its due right. So he used to stand according to however he thought would be long enough for himself, he was praying alone, or the congregation could hack. And then the ruku' would be as long, not as long as he stood, but proportionate to the length. This is something that some of the people don't understand so well either, and this is what Uthaymeen is saying, that if they think that the ruku' has to be, the ayah that he's prayed is 10 ayahs, then the ruku' has to be 10 ayahs long as well. That's not what it means. If 10 ayahs means that it's not very long, then the ruku' will not be very long. If you've prayed one whole surah, Baqarah, while you're standing in one rak'ah, then the ruku' would have to be long. This is the sunnah of the Prophet. Sunnah, I mean, not something which is binding, but this is how some of the imitation has introduced even to the salah. So Shaykh al-Islam goes on to talk about and saying that we have our sunnah, we don't need to imitate them in their sunnah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." This is the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is sufficient for us. We don't need to follow them in their awsaf, in their description. We don't need to use the fire as a sutra. We don't need to use astronomy to establish the moon sighting. However, if there is a need, then wooden sandals would be permissible, shirt and trousers, etc. Another reason why imitation is haram, because it leads to extreme ideas within worship. It leads to extreme ideas within worship. تشدد في الدين بزيادة عن المشروع. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تشددوا أنفسكم. Don't make things hard upon yourself. And the example is that they created monks and monasteries, and then they became binding. They had to do it. They made it binding upon themselves. I'm not going to have relations. I'm not going to get married. I'm going to wear wool. I'm not going to eat nice clothes. And what's happened today? You see the most amount of filth happening within these monasteries because they can't hack it. They can't hack it. They made life difficult for themselves, and this is not from the religion of Islam. But an example that the Shaykh gives within the Ummah today, muwaswisin fi tahara. Those people who have waswasa in tahara. Allah and His Messenger has given us a way for us to purify ourselves. But unfortunately, through our own waswasa, what we allow the shaitan to attack us with, and through our own level of ignorance and negligence, we are continually fighting a battle through tahara. And to the extent that I know more than one person has stopped praying totally because they feel that they are constantly impure. Now the ahkam is quite clear. Even if you are completely impure all the time and it comes out all the time, there are ahkam for it. But waswasa, I know one person, I've seen him literally do wudu 3 times. He's finished his wudu and he's gone back and he's sitting in the same. He hasn't got up, he starts doing wudu again. Practicing by the big beard, praying salah, studies in the jama. Waswasa. And the Shaykh is saying here, when you start introducing new things, you start making things hard for yourself, waswas will come. The deen is easy. You don't need to do wudu 3 times. You can see for yourself that you're doing wudu 3 times. You don't need to do that. Another reason why imitation of the Ashab al-Jahim is prohibited in the religion of Islam is when you start going into extreme, you end up losing the hikmah of the worship. You end up losing the hikmah of that actual worship that you are trying to do. So when you're trying to be chaste, which is very noble, but when they start become celibate and say, I'm not going to get married ever, you've gone into extreme. And the hikmah of chastity is gone. The hikmah of chastity is that you reserve yourself for your family. But they've lost it completely now. So the conclusion given to the reasons as to why it's hard is because the Shaykh says, أَصَابَهُمْ قَسْوَةً عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Why is imitating haram? After all of what we've just said, their hearts have become hard. They become diverted from the hidayah of Allah. The Shaykh goes on to another fasl. He says, في ذكر فوائد خطبة عظيمة في يوم عرفة. The Prophet ﷺ said in the Yom Arafah, كل شيء من أمر الجاهلية تحت قدمين موضوع. That everything under my feet from the Jahiliyyah is completely annulled. Nothing is binding. This is after Makkah has been liberated and is now in the lands of the Muslims. When he went to Arafah, this is his final khutbah in Makkah, he said everything connected to Jahiliyyah is completely eradicated. So the Shaykh has brought a chapter based on this statement. And the Shaykh is saying here that Islam has come, the whole point of Islam came to eradicate Jahiliyyah. And this was the conclusion of his Risalah. 23 years he strove hard to remove this Jahiliyyah. So this is why one of the reasons why we can't go back to it. And some of the ulama said that when the time of Isa, after the time of Isa, there was khair. But the longer the distance people went away from Isa's time, the more darkness came in. To the extent that there was complete darkness. And then Prophet ﷺ came and Allah gave him wahi. This is when light came in. But then after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, after he passed away, what started happening? The light started going out. Ikhtilaf came between the Sahabas. Ikhtilaf came between the Salaf. People started killing each other. And until now, aspects of Jahiliyyah have entered back into the Ummah which are probably even worse than they were before. Which are worse than they were before. In Jahiliyyah, a man would not be with a man. But now they're talking about a man being with a dead body. This is just an example. But you can see that Jahiliyyah, the further we go away from what the Prophet ﷺ came to eradicate, the worse the Jahiliyyah will become. And Islam now has become the benchmark. The Hidayah now has become the benchmark. If we take this benchmark away, then there are no restrictions. There are no restrictions. So now, for example, if we say, let's establish a sixth prayer for the day, you'll say, no, this is not accepted, this is bid'ah. But if a group of the Muslims get away with it and they pray 6 salah a day, what will happen? What stops there from being a 7th? What stops there from being an 8th? What stops there being dhuhr into 10 rak'at? Islam is the benchmark. Once we take that benchmark away, all restrictions are removed, as the Shaykh says. So he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ came to preserve the Sharia. He gave us the Sharia and he came to preserve it. He gave us all the ways so that this preservation can remain in this ummah. And by injecting bid'ah and injecting imitation, then this is when we leave the Sharia, and this is when we leave the as-Siraat al-Mustaqeem. And the Shaykh continues to say, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جَمَعَتْ وَصْفَيْنِ. How is it if bid'ah and imitation are both being injected at the same time? How evil would be the end, or the implications of it. The next chapter, the Shaykh says, ذِكْرُ إِجْمَاء الصَّحَابَةِ وَالسَّلَفَ عَلَى الشَّرِيعَةِ مُخَالَفَةً لِلْكُفَّارِ وَنَحْوِهِمْ. He's giving understanding of the Salaf now on how we should be different to the people who have been led astray. And there are many examples, and one of the example gives us their understanding also, is that at the time of Umar radiallahu anh, cultures began to become mixed. He went to Bayt al-Maqdis, there were Jews there, there were Christians there, etc. And there were wars that were happening and the Muslim empire was expanding. So people were giving jizya to live in these Muslim lands. And Umar obviously had to permit them, and the whole idea was that we keep them alive and we don't mutilate and annihilate, like we talked about yesterday. But he placed within this multiculturalism conditions. He said that there are conditions, and these conditions that we do not resemble. وَلَا تَشَبَّهْ بِهِمْ فِي شَيْءٍ مِنْ الْمَلَابِسِ. That the clothes cannot resemble one another. The imam cannot resemble one another. Na'alayn, your shoes. Farq fi sha'r, even your hairstyle cannot resemble one another. Why would he go as far as hairstyle if imitating the kuffar was something which is not permitted? He's saying, you can live with them amongst us, you keep your identity, we keep our identity. Also, he went by further, extending that further by saying that you cannot erect your symbols of your religion within our society. You're free to do whatever you want in your own quarters, in your own little societies, in your own compounds, but the society cannot become corrupt and polluted and mixed in this manner. If this person is saying it's the haqq, or this person is saying the haqq, then the haqq will become polluted. Nobody will know what the haqq actually is. And another reason, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that because this now cuts all the ways for copying one another. If you preserve your identity, even to your hairstyle, even to the way you dress, then your acts of worship will not become polluted with one another. And how relevant is that today? People are resembling the kuffar within our masajid, in our homes. They're looking at these TV screens and think, how can I be like this person? When your superheroes, if you want to talk about superheroes, are quite clear within the Sharia. These people had an actual impact on life. As we saw yesterday, Rahmatul Alameen has impacted life to this day from 1400 years ago, in a way that the world has never seen before. And to the fact that I'm speaking in the microphone, we have phones here, all of this extends from the understanding from the Quran and the Sunnah, as we established yesterday. So why do we need to? If we had our own identity and we followed our own understanding of the religion, think of the amazing things we could do in the dunya. And this leads on to another point, and the Shaykh is saying here that Ibn Taymiyyah says, تَمَيِّزَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فِي الشُّعُرِ وَالْمَلَابِسِ, that you need to have a differentiation between the way you dress and the way you conduct yourself within society, is that unfortunately now a lot of people are being pushed with the idea of British values. That we have to compromise our religious beliefs and practices based on British values. But this is something that they don't understand as to what British values are, and there's also a misunderstanding as to what Islam teaches as its values. Anything which is good, we have fully yaqeen we will find in Islam. British values basically means that you respect one another, you don't harm one another, your blood is protected, your honour is protected, your wealth is protected, all of these things are protected, you can't transgress against one another. This has been established in Islam 1400 years. This is British values. What they confuse it with is British culture. British culture refers to you sacrificing your worship and your identity and your ibadah and your manhaj. Culture would mean that yes, you go to the pub, yes, you start mixing, yes, you do all the things that they do. Right now the government are not pushing British culture. Yes, we are within the culture and we live cohesively, we integrate and we benefit, but we are not forced to sacrifice our Aqidah and our identity. Rather, we need to open up dialogue to explain to them what the true Islam is. British values were, however, we are one in this. We are calling to tolerance, we are calling to respect. The Shaykh then goes on, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to talk about the different types of imitation, and he's saying that there are three main different types of imitation. And this is talking about what we said shortly before, and he's coming back to this point. He's saying that sometimes an act of worship might not be permissible in certain aspects, but is permissible within a particular context. So Allah describes the people when they used to do tawaf around the Kaaba. Before Islam, they used to do tawaf around the Kaaba naked. Men and women used to be naked doing tawaf. Whilst they used to do tawaf, they used to whistle and they used to clap. This was their ibadah. Obviously, alhamdulillah, Islam came to purify this. But now the discussion between the ulama is clapping. Is clapping a form of resembling them or not? And Shaykh al-Islam is saying here that sometimes clapping is allowed. Clapping by itself, there's dispute. If somebody does something good, you clap. Is that permissible or not? That's separate. But he's saying here, within the framework of Islam, Islam has permitted clapping, even though it's blameworthy in other aspects, but it's made it permissible within a particular context. And the context is when the Imam is making a mistake, the men say Subhanallah and the women clap in this fashion. They use the fingers of the right hand against the palm of their left hand to signal a mistake for the Imam. Another way where imitation may be contextualized is when the asl is the same. And Islam came to preserve this asl. Ramadan, before Islam was called Ramadan. Before Islam they used to make tawaf, we make tawaf. Before Islam they used to make Safa, Marwa, Sa'i, and we do the same thing. So the asl was the same before Jahiliyyah, and its asl remains the same now. And sometimes the kuffar or Ashab al-Jahim are doing something and there is no mention in the Sharia. So there are three characteristics. One, where something is only permissible due to a particular context that Islam has given. Another type of imitation, Islam has left it open and has preserved the same thing that they used to do in Jahiliyyah. And there are many examples of this one as well. They used to have qasama, they used to have blood money. All of these things remained in Islam. But there's another one, which is the third one, is where there is no mention. And the Shaykh saying that the asl for this now is haram. The asl is haram to imitating them. And the reason for this is because it blocks the means to what we've said before. If we say that the asl, the origin of imitating the kuffar is not haram, they can do whatever they do, then you're going to fall into what they did before. And he gives the dalil for this is where Umar radiallahu anh, he, out of the siyasa, the politics and the hikmah that he had, is that when he saw Muslims started taking graves or places as venerating places, that they go to this particular place to worship Allah in that particular place because they think that particular place has some kind of virtue connected to it, he destroyed it. This is the siyasa. Because he knew that, number three, this is the asl. There is no precedence in the Sharia. There is no contextualized reason why they should be doing this. So it goes back to number three, which is the asl, which is haram. And then the Shaykh al-Islam goes on to give ijma' of the Salaf, which is scholarly consensus. There was no difference of opinion from the madhahib and even before the madhahib that imitation is haram. Copying them is haram. And he gives examples. For example, in the madhab of the Malikiyyah, they say that it's makruh for you not to work on the day of Jumu'ah. To take Jumu'ah as a day off is makruh in the Maliki madhab. Why? Because this would be resembling the Yahud who took Saturday off as a day of relaxation. Another example from the Salaf, Imam al-Shafi'i said that it is not allowed for us to have the same slogans and the same banners or the same uniform, so to speak. So if your masjid looks like the masjid of Ahlul Bid'ah, this is not permissible. Why? Because this is the tashbih of those people who have been led astray. This is in his madhab. Imam Malik said that it is not allowed, and this is very interesting here, and I had a discussion on this particular issue with Sheikh Salih Sadlan at length once, Allah yarham, that we are not allowed to use the same technical terminologies that the kuffar use. So Imam Ahmad said, so when they are using a particular word for a month, then we are not allowed to do that. So January is not January, February is not February, March is not March. Which is worse for us now, Monday. You know why Monday is called Monday? You know the origin of Monday? Yes, it's the day when they used to worship the moon. Moon's day, Monday. Tuesday, I'm not sure. Thursday, what do you think Thursday is? Yes. Yes, connected to Thor. Yes. So these are the days that are connected. Saturday is connected to Sabt. So there are other examples as well. When you say fortune, when you say good luck, what does good luck actually mean? It comes from the Greek, or I think the Latin, of fortune. And fortune means that qadr is not in your hands. Qadr is dictated for you by nature and the gods, for example. This is in our language. We can't run away from this. And Shaykh Salih Sadlan says you're not allowed to use it. You can't call Monday, Monday. You can't call Thursday, Thursday. You can't say luck. And I was having a discussion with him, and he was bringing things from Kitab al-Tawheed. You will find in Kitab al-Tawheed that we have to remove every form of shirk, even in wording. But I said to the Shaykh, there is no alternative. But he said, no, the asl is the same. If the asl means this is the day that you worship the moon, then this is the asl. And if it's connected to that still, even if people are not using it in that way, so maybe something we can refer back to the scholars, but in his opinion, he was saying that this is not permitted. This is what Imam Ahmad is saying. The point here Imam Ahmad is saying is that when they are using these words, it is not permissible for us to imitate them. So this is an example of Shaykh al-Islam bringing ijma' and examples of fiqh, of how we are not allowed to imitate the kuffar and ashab al-jahim. And then he brings a chapter which is very relevant, and I think you will find this very interesting. He says, Amar bil mukhalafa ash-shayateen. If we are not allowed to imitate the kuffar and ashab al-jahim, then what about the shayateen? Obviously, it's much worse. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَكْمِلْ دِينَهُ كَالْأَعْرَابِ. And those people who are completely foolish and have not completed their religion, like the Bedouins. At that time, the people who used to live outside the city were very, very harsh and very, very, very ignorant of their religion. And you could not give them any sense or understanding of anything. If you tell them that this is fire, don't touch it, they will touch it regardless. And I've seen this. I lived in Riyadh for 7 years. And some people, it's very difficult for you to make them understand something which is very, very basic. And this is because of the trait that Allah has described them of in the Quran, that this is how they are. So what is the ruling on imitating the foolish people and the shayateen? And the Shaykh obviously brings dalil to say that it is not permissible, and one of the things that we find in the Sharia is eating with your left hand, because this is how a shaitan eats, and it is not permissible for us to imitate evil doers and ignorant, foolish doers. Now within the Sharia, there's an incident that happened with the Prophet ﷺ after he liberated Makkah. After Fatih Makkah, he sent Khalid bin Walid to destroy the idol of Uzza. To destroy the idol of Uzza. he sent Khalid bin Walid because the idol of Uzza was one of their biggest idols. أَفَرَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى. It was something that they had a lot of pride in. Now, they defended Uzza, they loved Uzza, and he said that you're going to go to Uzza and you're going to see a lot of resistance. This mission for you now is going to be a mission where there is going to be something physical, perhaps. This is what I'm sending you, Khalid bin Walid, Saif al-Islam. So he went there, and Uzza was a tree. He didn't know what he was going to expect. And he went there, he saw a tree. And there were voices coming out from the tree. People were talking from the tree. And he described that, this is well known in the books of the Sirah. He went to that place and he saw black women who were naked, and they were around the tree, moving in ways that he described. Khalid bin Walid, may Allah be pleased with him, annihilated everything that was there. Annihilated everything that was there. He went back to the Prophet ﷺ, and through the Wahy, the Prophet ﷺ said, now that is the end of Uzza. What does this remind you of, my brothers and sisters? Where do we see women, black women in society who have got no clothes on, literally next to no clothes on, moving in the way that they are moving within society today? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. We don't need to bring this kind of filth into the house of Allah, but you will see it. It's in society everywhere. Amr mukhalafa shayateen. We have been commanded to be different to the shayateen and not follow the path of the shayateen and not follow the path of those who are ignorant. The next chapter, the Shaykh says, بين التشبه بالكفار والشياطين وبين الأعراب والأعجام فرق يجب اعتباره. He said, now there are some times when following the kuffar is not imitation, and there are sometimes following these foolish people is not imitation. So he said there's three categories now. Following the shayateen, this is kufr and this is sin, and it's not allowed. That is quite clear. But when we are following non-Arabs, when we are following non-Muslim culture, is that allowed? The Shaykh said that it is not permissible for us to say that following non-Muslims or non-Arabs is completely haram. He said there is no itlaq in it, there is no unrestricted prohibition in it. And he gives tafsir, he said there's tafsir. He goes, for example, he says, for example, that the jins of a qawm, that the type of a qawm, of a nation, might be better than another qawm. So Arabs might be better than non-Arabs in the general sense. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying. They have the lugha of the Quran. They have been given the hidayah which affects their hearts. Non-Arabs don't have that. Non-Arabs don't have that. When we read the Quran, they don't know what they're reading. Arabs have been given the culture of Islam. It's deeply enriched within their culture. Other non-Arab cultures don't have that. British Muslims have become British. From different cultures, people become completely alien to the culture and the feel of Islam. So he's saying, in general, if you are from an Arab background, you will be better off than if you're not from an Arab background. It's very important for us to define what Arab is here, because Arab, some people have taken this nationalism and taken this patriotism and saying that Arabs are better. Shaykh al-Islam said, he said, linguistically, Arabs you can become an Arab through three different ways. Either through your lineage, either you are living amongst them and you settle amongst them, or you speak their language. Or you speak their language. So this is what we mean by Arabs are better than non-Arabs. If you speak Arabic, you understand the Quran and the Sunnah, you understand the religion of Islam, but you're living in England, in Coventry, then you are classed as an Arab in this sense. And this makes you better than somebody who doesn't have that. I think that makes perfect sense. How are people misguided when they don't understand the Arabic language? They don't understand what Allah and the Messenger is telling them, commanding them to do. So he's saying that Arabic, having Arabic is better because it's a symbol of Islam. When you hear people speaking Arabic, even the kuffar, they're using the words of Allah, alhamdulillah. It's a symbol, it's the identity of Islam. It creates unity. In this world, can you imagine, there are 50, 60, 70 million people that speak one language. And this is what's happening in the world now with English being spread throughout. to remove this identity. Why are the Chinese so strong? Because there's 1 billion people that speak one language. There is no imitation when we are following the Arabic language, because the asl is from Ismail. The asl of the Arabic language is from Ismail, who learned it from Jurhum. There is no imitation of any other culture or society. So these are the reasons why he's saying the Arabic language is very important. But going back to the point that he's making, he's saying that sometimes a non-Arab is better than an Arab. And he said some of our leaders from this ummah were non-Arab. Bilal ibn Rabah, Ibn Abi Rabah, Salman al-Farsi, Suhaib al-Rumi, Imam Bukhari, all the Imams of the 6 books were non-Arab. Bukhari, except Muslim. Bukhari, Muslim, Nasa'i from Nasa', Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood from Sijistan, and Ibn Majah. They're all from a place, Khorasan, outside of being Arab. But the point here is saying that leaving this level of identity would leave your Islamic culture. Because Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّهُ ذِكْرٌ لَكَ وَلِقَوْمِكَ. This kitab that has been given to you in Arabic is a guide for you and for your nation, irrespective of where that nation is. It could be in Canada or it could be in Mecca. But it's guidance for you, and this is your identity, the Arabic language. And he's saying, he continues to say that this doesn't mean that we have pride of Arab over non-Arab. But when we are following people who are either non-Arab or people who may be foolish in one aspect, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're going to be like them in other aspects that you're imitating them. This is the point of this chapter. The next chapter, he's saying now that people come with this doubt of interfaith. I call it interfaith. The Shaykh is saying, الرد على من عارض أدلة التشبه أن الشرع من قبلنا شرع لنا. That this is a refutation of those people who say that those prophets who came before us are our Anbiya also. So if the Jews are doing something, then we are following a Nabi. If we are following Christians, we are following a Nabi. So their Sharia is the Sharia for us also. So what they do by this is that we say that Ibrahim is our father, let's all become brothers. A Jew, Muslim, Christian, we're all brothers. So the Shaykh is going to talk about this. Before that, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that this is a correct قائل شرع من قبلنا شرع لنا, but it's being used in the wrong way here. And we will see why. In response, Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that yes, this is correct, but they are not a source anymore. The Torah is not a source anymore. The Gospel is not a source anymore. Musa was a source, Isa was a source, but they have corrupted their religion. So you can't say that now that they are our brothers because they have corrupted their religion. Yes, they would be our brothers if they followed all the prophets, including Muhammad alayhi salam, which was in their books. On top of that, we have a wahi which abrogates all the other wahis. And this is the ummah which is the best ummah. This is the kitab which is the best kitab. And this is the prophet which is the best prophet. So we don't need not to degrade any other anbiya, not to degrade any book, but we have what is better. And then the Shaykh goes on to give examples. He's saying that, okay, so now where are you going to differentiate? They say, for example, that we are brothers because we all respect the day of Ashura. The Yahud respect it, the Nasara respect it, and even the Mushriks of Jahiliyyah respected it. And now this Ummah, Muhammad alayhi salam came and he said we fast these days because we are all brothers. This is the shubha that they are coming out with. This is their dalil to say interfaith is legislated. Response to this, the Shaykh says, Ibn Taymiyyah, that it used to be wajib, but now it has been abrogated. So it's mustahab. So the hukm for us to fast Ashura is different for the hukm for them. So there is no resemblance. It's not wajib for you to fast Ashura. Also, he's saying now that the revelation has stopped. So if you're going to you can't make qiyas, you can't make an analogy with them fasting on Ashura and us fasting on Ashura and say that it's broadly accepted within all aspects of the religion. You can't say that Christians are brothers in every sense. The wahi has stopped. If you're talking about one aspect, that is only specific because the wahi was there. And the Prophet was there to guide us to what was right and what was wrong. And also, which is very important here, which they are confusing matters with, is that when we are fasting Ashura, we are not fasting Ashura to be like them. We are fasting Ashura because it's the haqq. And if the haqq coincides with them doing something, then this is the haqq. They will say Allah is one. They will say that there is a Yawm al-Qiyamah. Does that mean we are copying them and we become brothers in this aspect? No, it doesn't. And the Shaykh brings an interesting point here. He says, وَمِثْلُ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ لَوْ أَنَّ الْمُسْلِمْ بِدَارِ الْحَرْبِ وَدَارِ الْكُفْرِ. If there is a Muslim today living in a non-Muslim land, if that land has enmity and a war against the Muslims, as some of the takfiris are saying, we're living in a land which is Dar al-Harb. You can do whatever you want. You can drive your van, get out of the van and start stabbing people. This is the land of war. This is what they're saying. But we say that this is the Dar al-Ahd or Dar al-Kufr. This is a land where we are living amongst the kuffar. غير حرب لم يكن مأمورا بالمخالفة لهم هدي ظاهر. Ibn Taymiyyah is saying here that it is not prescribed for us to put our differences up in their face, to make it a matter of discord. لما عليه من ذلك من الضرر. What will that do is it will just create enmity. We are Muslims and we are not going to integrate with you guys. We are not going to do anything to conform with you guys. Because we have hatred towards you. This is just going to create enmity. And it's not going to create any dialogue. Nobody's going to become Muslim. Nobody's going to accept the haqq. But qad yustahab. Rather, it is recommended. Or yajib. Sometimes it is an obligation. Sometimes it could be an individual obligation for you. لِلرَّجُلْ أَنْ يُشَارِكُهُمْ أَحْيَانًا فِي هَدْيِهِمْ الظَّاهِرِ. That you cooperate with them in some of these matters. Which will bring maslaha ad-diniyah من دعوتهم إلى الدين والإطلاق للباطل أمن الإخوان المسلمين ذلك أو دفع ضررهم عن المسلمين. So he's saying that here, when we get engaged possibly with politics, or possibly with our culture, or possibly with integrating with them, if there is a maslaha for the Muslimin, this is what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying here, that you become with them for the benefit of the Muslims and the religion, then this might be something which is wajib, or could be something which is mustahab for the Muslims living in a non-Muslim land. That doesn't mean that we say that this is interfaith, and that doesn't mean that we say that everybody is upon the haqq. We keep our identity in order to open this dialogue up. The next fasl, the Shaykh says in the next chapter, أعمال الكفار والأجام ونحوهم تنقسم إلى ثلاث أقسام. He's saying that this example that you've brought, that the Sharia of the people before us is the Sharia for us, is of three different scenarios. So you can't make a blanket statement that we're saying we're all brothers. The first one is that the asal is the same, but the characteristic is different. Like we've seen before, but now here we're talking in an interfaith aspect. For example, they pray Salah and we pray Salah, but they do not pray Salah with their shoes on. But our Sharia gives that context or that extra description which allows us to be different to them. Another example, he says that they don't dye their hair when it gets white. We have been recommended to be different to them. Dye your hair, your beard. خالف يهود والنصارى. Grow your beard and cut your mustache. Be different to them. The asl is the same. They've got beards, but our description and our identity is different to them in that. The second example of their Sharia and our Sharia being the same in some aspects is when the Sharia they had has been abrogated by our Sharia. They used to venerate the day of Saturday. We have Friday. Saturday has been abrogated. Another example is when they have introduced something new into their Sharia, and this is not Shar' man qablana. This is not the Sharia from them aslan. In its origin, it's not part of their Sharia, but they've innovated, they've corrupted their books. So this is not a hujjah. So for someone to say that we are all brothers, and they are not giving attention to these three different aspects or these three different types of Sharia or aspects of the Sharia, and then they are doing injustice to the Sharia of our Sharia and their Sharia also. Now the Shaykh is moving on to the final part of the book, and we're here he's going to talk about festivals of the kuffar. And this is how he's tying it in with the two Sharias being similar. They have a Sharia, we have Sharia. They have Ayad, they have Eid, we have Eid. But it's different. So he's saying now that... Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Then 10 minutes.
Okay. What's the limit? It's like 2 o'clock. So I have 10 minutes to finish the book?
Yeah.
Okay, I have 10 minutes to finish 30 pages.
Allah.
The Shaykh begins to say that they have innovated into their religion these celebrations. And an example of that we see today are birthdays. Birthdays were rejected from their own leaders at that time. Because birthdays, if you look in the encyclopedia, an American encyclopedia is well documented, the origin of birthday was to celebrate the birth of a god or somebody that was noble. They used to worship this idol. He was born on that day, so they used to worship him. The Jews and the Christians initially said that this is a pagan ritual, we have nothing to do with it. It's a pagan ritual, we have nothing to do with it. But what they did is they innovated. Eventually they said, yes, let's have an Eid for Isa, let's have an Eid for Nabi, al-Mawlid. So the Shaykh is saying, what is an Eid? He said, Eid is an act of worship whether you like it or not. If you say, I'm going to take part of Christmas, I'm going to take part of Milad al-Nabi, I don't hold it to be a religious event, I'm just doing it just so that it can be social, or I can do something which is not part of worship. The Shaykh said that this is not good enough. Eid is part of the religion, because Allah's Messenger has specified Eid into 2 Eids. And Allah says in the Quran, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. Everyone has been given a Sharia and a manhaj. The ulama of tafsir have said that this refers to festivals. Every ummah has been given this festival. So if you are practicing a festival of somebody else, then you are resembling them, whether you like it or not. This is going back to the point that we said before. If you claim that I'm trying to be like them, but I have no intention to be like them, then you are imitating them. Whether you claim that this is your niyyah or not. And then the Shaykh goes on to say, لا يجوز شهود أعياد النصارى واليهود. He said that is ijma of the ulama that we are not allowed to take part of their festivals. Why? A, it's an innovation. B, if something repeats itself, then this is a Eid. If it's monthly, if it's annually, if it's weekly, as long as something is repeating itself, it's referred to as Eid. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تجعل قبري عيدا. Don't make my grave a place of frequent revisitation. So anything which comes about annually or weekly, then we say this is a Eid. So if there's a Christmas that's going to be there 25th of every December, that's a Eid. If you are born on the 1st of January and you're going to celebrate every 1st of January, that's a Eid because it's reoccurring. So the Shaykh said that this is what is Eid. The Shaykh is saying that it normalizes evil into the Sharia. So if you're going to invent new festivals into the Sharia, then this is normalizing something new into the Sharia. It becomes being pleased with batil. You become happy with batil. How can you say God has a son? Let's celebrate that as a birthday. Let's celebrate that and say that God died. How can we do that? We're only going to Easter and we're going to celebrate that God has a mother. It's fantasizing batil. And the thing is with this also now is that people now within this country, they will say that I'm not practicing Christmas, but they get in the festive spirit. There are sales, there are free chocolates, there are movies on TV, it's a holiday for 2 weeks for some people. They get in that spirit. So now whether they are practicing this action or not, they look forward to this period of time. So it's upon us all Muslims to do this. And Ibn Uthaymeen said that if you're living amongst the Muslims and the kuffar have special sales and special gifts that they want to give to the Muslims and non-Muslims alike, then he said it's not permissible for you to do this if this is within a Muslim country, because what you're doing now is you're bringing normality and fantasizing the idea of these festivals. Actions of their festivals most of the time involves kufr, believing God has a son, believing his son was killed. We don't believe that Isa alayhi salam passed away. We believe that he was raised without being killed. But even if you say it's not kufr, then it introduces ideas which are haram, mixing, music, carols, etc. And then the Shaykh goes on to a very important point that he said that celebrating their festivals creates a sense of love and attachment, mawadda wa muhabba. And the scholars have said that this is a 4 types, and this is very, very important. The first one is known as a tawalli. Don't ally yourself with those people that Allah has anger with. Tawalli means that you accept their kufr and you support their kufr. Even if you claim to be a Muslim, this is kufr with the ulama. The next stage would be muwalat. You say that you're a Muslim, which is fine, and they are kuffar, and you know that they are kuffar, which is fine. You don't want to support their religion or support their kufr, but you have love towards them. You have respect towards them. You want to imitate them. They say that this is a sin. Now, we have to make sure that sometimes this word, al-muwalat, is translated incorrectly. Some people take this to say that we can't love them and we can't befriend them. That this is not the meaning here. The love here is talking about in the religious sense. Don't we see that Islam permits us to marry Jews and Christians, that we have ties of kinship with our parents that are not Muslim? Muwalat, love here is talking about a religious love. Now this religious love unfortunately has evolved. It's not about religion anymore. Within society, if you speak to an 18-year-old non-Muslim, he's not going to talk to you about Jesus. He's going to talk to you about pop stars, footballers and all these kind of things. This is the level of attachment that people have. They have attachment to footballers more than they have to the Prophet ﷺ. If he realizes that this is a sin, this falls into. If he realizes that this is a weakness in himself, then this falls into sin. There's another thing which the ulama have, which is called mudahana. When you sacrifice your religion for the sake of worldly benefit. They say that this is bottom, the minimum of this is haram. It could lead to kufr. If you sell your religion for the sake of the dunya. And there's another thing which is called mudarat. And mudarat is when you leave aspects or compromise aspects of the religion, not from the usul, not from ijtihad, not from your core foundations of the religion, but you make compromises within the religion for the sake of a religious benefit. And the scholars say that this is permissible. And the Prophet ﷺ did this on many occasions. And the Shaykh is talking about this here, Ibn Uthaymeen, within its context. And then he's saying that the giving, celebrating the festivals of Kuffar, if we have said that it's haram to take part, what does it mean for giving gifts? What does it mean for selling? He's saying that giving gifts, selling them commodities in order to help them celebrate their festivals are all haram. But again, we're talking about somebody living in a Muslim society. And the argument here is that it's helping them, ta'awunu al-ithmi wal-udwan. You're helping them to celebrate their festivals. But if you're living in a non-Muslim society, especially now when most people are atheists, when you don't even know if he's going to celebrate the festival or not, then that takes a different hukum. So, what's the ruling on accepting a gift? What's the ruling on accepting a gift? A lot of the ulama differed on this. Ibn Taymiyyah is of the opinion that you are allowed to accept it, as long as it's not something which is a symbol of their religion, or if it's not something that was sacrificed for their religion, like meat. Because Allah says, أُحِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. Anything which is sacrificed for the sake of other than Allah, a festival, then it's not permissible. And as long as it doesn't lead for some kind of interfaith dialogue that we say, yeah, okay, you're going to be the same as me, and we will swap presents, and this will be my Eid, and this will be your Eid. These are the conditions. And this is the opinion of Ali and Aisha, Abu Darda, Malik, and a narration from Imam Ahmad. The argument for this is that the flip side is not there. When you are selling them commodities, when you're giving them gifts, you are giving it to them, you are cooperating in their sin in their festival. But if you're accepting it, you are not cooperating. Rather, what you're doing is you're opening the door for dialogue, for them to love you, and to see the goodness of Islam. The Shaykh then goes on to say that we are not allowed to share. He has a fasl here, a chapter which is talking about sharing in acts of worship on their days and our days, ayyam al-a'yad al-kuffar. And he gives an example of some people. They say that we will celebrate and worship with you in your days, and you can worship with us in our days. Inshallah, if you want.
Inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. We will have salah now, and after the salah the Shaykh will finish.